What would drive a preacher's wife to beg a rancher for help in the dead of night? What desperate plea could unravel the very fabric of a small town, shaking its foundations forever? Stay tuned, because the truth is darker than you could ever imagine. Before we dive in, please drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We would love to hear from you. If you enjoy stories like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and share it with someone who would love it too. The sound of hooves clopping on dirt roads, wind howling through the empty streets of a small western town. The camera pans over a dusty landscape, a city long forgotten by time, where secrets hide in every corner and every face carries a story. In a town where everyone knows your name, your business, and your sins, there are some secrets too dark even for the preacher's wife to bear. It's the kind of place where faith is meant to shine like a beacon, but sometimes that light can blind you to the truth. Mary, the preacher's wife, was the embodiment of grace. She was the heart of the church, a woman respected by all, a pillar of the community. But behind the quiet smiles and the soft prayers, there was something else, a fear she could no longer ignore. Something was closing in on her, something so dangerous she couldn't face it alone. The night deepens. The sound of footsteps crunching on gravel grows louder. A figure appears, a shadow cutting through the moonlit landscape. It's Mary, and she's heading straight for the rancher's homestead, her face a mask of worry, her steps quick, desperate. The church bell had barely stopped ringing when Mary made the decision that would change everything. No one knew she had come to this place. Not the preacher, not the townfolk, and certainly not the rancher. But there she was, standing at the gate of his ranch in the dead of night, her heart pounding in her chest. "Knock, knock, knock," the rancher answers. He's tall, rugged, with a face that shows the weight of years spent alone. His voice, rough as sandpaper, calls out into the night. "Mary, what are you doing here? It's late. Is everything—" She cuts him off, her voice trembling, urgent. "Please, hurry. It's about the preacher. You have to help me. He's going to find out. You have to stop him before it's too late." The rancher's brow furrows. His hand rests on the doorframe, pausing as he looks at her. Her eyes, wild, desperate, tell him everything he needs to know. The preacher's wife is hiding something. But what? Mary's anxiety is almost palpable. The rancher stares at her, silent, calculating. The wind howls around them, adding to the eerie tension. His gaze shifts to the horizon, where the shadows of the town loom, casting a long dark veil over the land. This town, it's got a way of swallowing you whole. It chews you up and spits you out when you least expect it, and the rancher knew that better than anyone. He had seen it tear apart the strongest men, break the toughest spirits. It was a place where even the preacher wasn't above suspicion. But the preacher's wife? She had a reputation for being as pure as the driven snow. To see her standing here, shaking, so close to breaking down, it didn't sit right with him. The rancher had his own demons, sins buried deep in the soil, but this was different. The rancher steps back, motioning for Mary to come in. He shuts the door behind her, and the flickering light from an oil lamp casts long shadows across the room. "Sit down, Mary. Take a breath. Now, tell me what's going on." Mary hesitates, her hands shaking as she clasps them together. I don't know how to explain this. The preacher has been asking questions. Too many questions. He's suspicious, and if he finds out, everything will fall apart. My husband, my life, I'll lose everything. We have to stop him." The rancher crosses his arms, a grim expression settling over his face. His mind races. He knows Mary well enough to know that she's not the kind of woman to lie. But why would she be so terrified of her own husband? Why now? And what could he possibly do to fix this mess? "You've got me out here in the middle of nowhere for a reason, but I can't help you unless you tell me what's really going on, Mary. What's the preacher so suspicious of? What's he threatening?" Mary takes a deep breath, her eyes flickering with fear. She opens her mouth to speak, but no words come. The rancher waits, his gaze softening slightly. "I can't. It's too dangerous. You don't understand. Then help me understand." The rancher's gaze pierces through Mary. He knows that whatever she's hiding is more dangerous than she's letting on. But the question lingers, unspoken. Should he get involved in this? Can he trust her? And if he does, where does it lead them? What would you do if you were in his boots? Would you help a friend, even when it means risking everything? Or would you turn away, no questions asked? Please, hurry. I'm running out of time. You're the only one who can help me now. The rancher stares at her, and for a moment, the weight of the decision presses down on him. He looks away, his eyes drifting to the night sky. But when he turns back to her, there's no more hesitation. "All right, Mary, I'll help you. But know this. Once we do this, there's no turning back." What do you think the rancher's choice will mean for him and for Mary? Was it the right decision? Or has he just sealed his fate? The rancher knew there was no turning back now. The decision was made, but what Mary had dragged him into was far deeper than either of them could have imagined. He stepped out into the cold night, his boots crunching against the dirt as the weight of her plea echoed in his mind. No one in this town, no one, in his life, ever expected him to get involved in something like this. But here he was, with his hand forced, and there was no way to undo what had just begun. But what had the preacher's wife gotten herself into? What was so dangerous that she risked her soul, her marriage, and her life to keep it buried? The rancher moved swiftly toward his barn, his mind racing with every thought of the town, the preacher, and the consequences of his involvement. Mary's words still ring in his ears. "You're the only one who can help me now." The night was still, almost too quiet. As the rancher opened the barn doors, the smell of hay and horses hit him, a reminder of the solitude he'd come to embrace. But tonight, that silence felt suffocating. The storm that was coming wasn't going to be a simple one. It was bigger than him, bigger than the town, and he was right in the center of it. The rancher grabs a long rifle off the wall, preparing himself for whatever might come next. He can feel it, the inevitable pull of danger that has started to consume him too. He didn't know exactly what was waiting for him, but he knew one thing. If he didn't act now, there might not be a later. Inside the preacher's study, the dusty old books, the heavy Bible resting on his desk. He's sitting there, his face dark with suspicion as he slowly flips through a collection of letters that no one else has seen. The preacher had suspected something was wrong for weeks now. The rumors, the whispers behind closed doors, the strange late-night visits, but nothing concrete. Not yet. But now, with the evidence before him, the pieces were falling into place. His fingers linger over one particular letter, the paper worn with age, but the ink still fresh in places. His eyes narrow. He picks up a folded piece of paper, revealing the name at the top. It's Mary's. Mary, his wife, the woman who swore to be his partner, his confidant, his protector. She had betrayed him. There was no other way to see it. And now, he had the proof in his hands. His heart hammered against his chest as the realization hit him. She wasn't the woman he thought she was, and that meant everything he had built, everything he had worked for, was a lie. The preacher stands abruptly, the papers scattered on the desk. He storms out of his study, the door slamming behind him. His breath comes fast, his mind already racing to confront her. The rancher mounts his horse, galloping toward the town with urgency. His mind is consumed with what he just agreed to. The rancher is a man of few words, and his silence speaks volumes. He knows he's walking into a storm. But this wasn't about saving Mary anymore. This was about survival, plain and simple. The winds howled louder as he rode. The dark horizon loomed, and with it, the weight of his choices. There were no easy answers out here in the wild, and no one ever came out unscathed. Was he making the right call? Was he, too, about to lose everything? The rancher's grip on the reins tightens as he urges the horse faster. His thoughts are interrupted by the sound of galloping hooves behind him. Another rider, close. The preacher's silhouette was just visible in the distance, riding after the rancher, his horse moving fast and furious. The preacher's face shows anger, betrayal, and desperation in his eyes. He's not just chasing a man. He's chasing a part of himself that he never wanted to face. The moment of confrontation is coming. The preacher had no choice but to confront the rancher. He had to see if the rumors were true, He had to know if the woman he thought he knew had betrayed him, and if she had, the rancher would pay the price. The rancher turns sharply, his horse skidding to a halt. The preacher pulls his reins back hard, matching the stop in a cloud of dust. They face each other now, eyes locked in a battle of wills. The silence between them is deafening. "You think you can hide it from me, don't you?" The preacher spits, his voice like gravel, low and dangerous. "You think I'm blind to what's been happening right under my nose?" The rancher doesn't flinch. His jaw tightens, but his voice remains steady. "I don't know what you're talking about, preacher." The preacher's gaze sharpens, the accusation hanging between them like a loaded gun. "You and my wife, you've been seeing each other. I've got the letters. I've got the proof. What's the matter, rancher? Too cowardly to face the truth?" The rancher hesitates, but the cold air around them sharpens his focus. He knows what's at stake, but something about the preacher's words feels off. Too precise, too perfect. The rancher's eyes dart to the preacher's hand, where he's holding the papers, Mary's letters. Something doesn't sit right with him. "You think those letters mean something?" the rancher asks, his voice rising now. "You think they tell the whole story?" The preacher's eyes widen, and before he can respond, the rancher yanks the papers from his hand, crumpling them. His voice lowers to a dangerous whisper as he looks the preacher dead in the eye. "You don't know everything, do you, preacher? You think you've figured this out, but you're only looking at half the picture." The rancher turns his back, walking away slowly, but not without leaving the preacher with one final, unsettling thought. What if Mary's secrets are darker than either of us thought? What if we've both been played from the start? The preacher stands there, shaking with fury, but there's a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Something isn't right. The rancher may have just dropped a bombshell, but he's also ignited a fire that will burn them all, Mary, the preacher, and him, if they don't uncover the whole truth before it's too late. What's really going on here? Who's telling the truth, and who's hiding what? Can Mary's secret be worse than an affair, or is there something else lurking in the shadows? What would you do if you were in the preacher's shoes or the rancher's? The preacher's hand was gripping his horse's reins. His decision, too, now weighs heavily in the balance. The storm that had been gathering for days finally broke, but it wasn't just a storm of rain and wind. It was a storm of truth, and in the Wild West, truth always comes with a price. For the rancher, for the preacher, and for Mary, the preacher's wife, the time had come to face what they had spent so long trying to avoid. And in this town, nothing is ever truly forgotten. The rancher rides slowly through the countryside, his mind clouded with the words exchanged with the preacher. The rancher's face is calm, but the weight of his decisions bears down on him like the weight of the earth itself. The rancher had hoped, just for a moment, that things could be simple again, that the dust could settle, that the truth would stay buried where it belonged. But now, with Mary's secret and the preacher's fury in the mix, nothing was simple. The choices were made. The time for hesitation was over. The rancher's horse trots, the stillness of the land mirroring the silent weight pressing down on him. He knew he couldn't undo what had already happened, but he couldn't ignore what might come next. There was only one way out, and that road was a dangerous one. Mary stands in the doorway, her face drawn and pale. She's waiting, just like the rancher had asked. She knows the decision has been made, but what will it cost them all? Mary had never thought she'd end up here. When she married the preacher, she believed she was making the right choice, not just for herself, but for the town, for the community. She thought the preacher would be the one to protect her, but somewhere along the way, that protection had turned into something else, something suffocating. Mary steps outside, her boots crunching against the gravel. The town, just a few miles away, feels as far as the moon. She couldn't escape the guilt. She couldn't undo what had been done, and now the preacher was closing in. Her past with the rancher, a past she thought she'd buried, had come to light. And now, both of them, the rancher and the preacher, were caught in the same web. As Mary stands in the doorway, a soft breeze tugs at her hair, but it does little to calm the storm raging inside her. She watches the horizon, waiting for something, anything to happen. The wait feels eternal. The preacher had been pacing for hours. The truth, the undeniable truth, was finally in front of him. His wife, the woman he had built his life around, had betrayed him, and he knew, deep down, that the damage was irreparable. But even more troubling was the feeling in his gut, the knowledge that there was more to this story than just Mary and the rancher. There were whispers. There were lies. There was something far darker at play. The preacher stands at the edge of the church, his fists clenched, staring out into the vast, empty land before him. The weight of his anger and confusion is evident. The preacher had a choice: to confront Mary with everything he knew and risk losing her forever, or to walk away, to live in a lie and keep the peace. But peace had never been part of his nature. Not now, not after all this. He had built this town on trust, on truth. And now, the very foundation of that was crumbling beneath his feet. With a final, determined step, the preacher grabs his coat, fastening it tightly around himself. His voice, cold and unyielding, is heard in the distance. There's no turning back now. The rancher had made his decision. He had to go back, to face the preacher, to face the consequences of his actions. But as he approached the town, something felt off. The usual sounds of the evening, the chirping of crickets, the rustling of the trees, were eerily absent. The town was too quiet, the streets too still. The rancher's horse slows as he approaches the familiar buildings. He can feel the tension thick in the air, his expression unreadable. He knows that whatever happens next, there will be no going back. It was the moment of truth. Everything that had been said, every choice that had been made, would come to a head right here, right now. He dismounts, the sound of his boots against the wooden steps of the town's saloon ringing out. The door creaks as he enters, but the place is empty, deserted. A soft creaking sound echoes through the room, but there's no one inside. And then he heard it, the sound of a door opening, the preacher's voice, low and dangerous, carried across the room. "So you've come to finish it, rancher? Come to see me burn the rest of it down?" The preacher, standing in the doorway, his face drawn and grim. The tension between the two men is palpable. Neither says a word for a long moment. The rancher finally steps forward, his eyes locked with the preacher's. This is it. This is the moment they've both been dreading. The truth is about to be revealed. But what is that truth? What happens when both men finally confront the demons that have been haunting them all along? The preacher steps closer, his fists tightening at his sides. He doesn't need to say more. His anger speaks for him. "I won't let you take her from me," the preacher growls, his voice thick with venom. "You'll pay for this. You'll both pay." The rancher looks at him, calm but steely. "You don't understand, do you? There's more going on here than just you, me, and Mary. There's a bigger picture." The truth, it seemed, was even darker than either man had expected. As the rancher stood there, facing the preacher, a flood of memories of choices came rushing back, and in that moment, he knew what had to happen next. But there was still one last thing left to ask. The rancher clenched his jaw. As he finally spoke, "What would you do, preacher? What would you do if the very thing you feared was already happening? If the truth you were looking for was the one thing you couldn't bear to face?" The preacher hesitates, his eyes flickering with doubt. The two men stand in a tense silence, waiting for the other to make a move. In the end, the rancher and the preacher would both get what they deserved, but it was not the way they had expected. The truth, when it came, was too much to bear. And as the town slowly began to wake from its long slumber, the realization hit. No one, no matter how strong, could outrun the consequences of their actions forever. But what do you think? Was the rancher right to intervene, or was the preacher justified in his actions? What would you have done if you were in their boots? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get the conversation going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who loves a good Wild West tale. The truth always comes with a price, but sometimes we're better off facing it together. As the tension between the preacher and the rancher reaches its peak, the winds begin to shift. The sun that had once set with such defiance is now giving way to the cold grip of night. In this small, forgotten town, where secrets had long been buried, the final pieces were falling into place. But what happens when the truth finally rises to the surface? In the middle of the dusty street, the preacher and the rancher stand inches apart, their hearts pounding in the silence that stretches between them. The preacher's fury is palpable, his jaw clenched, his hands shaken as he holds the crumpled letters. The rancher stands strong, though his eyes betray a mix of regret and sorrow. This isn't just a confrontation, it's the final reckoning for both men. The preacher's voice breaks the silence, cold and heavy with accusation. You think I don't know? You think I haven't seen it? The way you've betrayed me? Betrayed this town? He steps forward, anger burning in his eyes. The air feels thick with the weight of his words. The rancher doesn't flinch. His voice is calm, but his words carry the truth he's kept buried for so long. You've been blind, preacher. This isn't just about Mary. This is about the lies you've built your whole life on. For a moment, neither of them speaks. The world around them is quiet, almost holding its breath. The wind picks up again, swirling around their feet, carrying the tension with it. Meanwhile, Mary stands at home, her face pale and strained as she watches from the doorway. She's been waiting for this moment, for the truth to come out, but now that it's here, she's not sure if she can bear it. The rancher had promised her that he would help, but the weight of her decisions now feels too heavy to carry. She knows that no matter what happens next, nothing will ever be the same. The preacher's anger is just the beginning. The entire town, her marriage, everything she thought she knew, is about to be turned upside down. But as the seconds tick by, she realizes there's only one thing left to do. She has to choose her family or her truth. Mary steps out of the doorway and into the open night. The soft glow from her home casts a warm light on her, but the surrounding darkness threatens to swallow her whole. She doesn't know what will happen next, but she knows she can't turn back now. Back in the street, the preacher's anger starts to fade, replaced by something far worse: doubt. His fists slowly unclench, his body slumping in exhaustion. What have I done? His voice cracks, as if the weight of his own actions is too much to carry. He looks down at the letters in his hands, their edges crinkled from the tension of his grip. For a brief moment, the rancher sees the man the preacher once was, the man who had led the town, the man who had been a symbol of strength. And in that moment, something changes. He realizes that both of them are caught in a web they can't escape. Both of them have made mistakes, and both of them have to pay the price. The preacher's eyes flicker with a new understanding, but it comes too late. His gaze shifts to the horizon, where the darkness of the night continues to grow. The choices they've made have led them here, to this moment, where there's no way to undo the damage. Mary steps forward, the sound of her footsteps the only thing breaking the silence. Her eyes meet the preacher's, then the rancher's. She stands tall, despite the fear and the uncertainty that still linger in her heart. It's time to face the truth, she says softly, but with the strength of a woman who's carried her burdens for far too long. The preacher looks at her, his eyes wide with disbelief, but he doesn't speak. The rancher, too, remains silent. For a long moment, the three of them just stand there, caught in the final act of their tangled lives. And then, in one final burst of clarity, the preacher makes his decision. He turns slowly and walks away. The weight of his choice presses down on him, but there's no going back. The truth has been spoken, the lies have been exposed, and now they must all face the consequences. As the preacher walked away, the small town bathed in the cold light of dawn. The rancher and Mary exchange a look, a silent understanding passing between them. The road ahead will be difficult, but at least now it's a road they will walk together. The town will gossip, the preacher will retreat into his sanctuary, and the world will keep turning. But for the rancher and Mary, this is their new beginning, one built on truth, no matter how painful it may be. The two of them walk down the street, the morning light casting long shadows behind them. They don't know what tomorrow holds, but they know one thing for certain: there's no going back. The preacher, the rancher, and Mary all face their demons. But what about you? What would you do in their shoes? What's the price of truth, and is it worth paying? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's talk about it. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more wild tales from the West. We'd love to hear from you. What do you think is the hardest truth to face? Comment below.